Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Irvine. Today, we're going to be talking about money, 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 money. We're going to be talking about money in your brain. Like, what the heck is going on when you cannot get to the level of income and the level of monetary growth that you want? Whether you're an entrepreneur listening to me, or you're somebody who has a job that's looking to get promoted and is trying to get to the next level, and it feels like somebody has this invisible chain wrapped around your waist, tugging you backwards, saying, nope, not for you. Nope, nope, you can't, and literally blocking you. And here's what I need you to hear is that if you haven't worked with us, if you haven't worked around the neurocoaching model, if you haven't understood how the brain creates money. Yes, you heard me right. Your brain is the tool that creates money. So if you haven't taught your brain how to create money, then what's going on is you have some automatic program stories running your business or your profession. And you didn't choose them. They weren't your fault. You did not give them permission. They were automated from when you were growing up and what you heard. Because when we're growing up, we hear stories about what money means and doesn't mean. We hear stories about success, about failure. We talked about that last week on the podcast. But when it comes to money, it's very sensitive, right? Because money has a lot of narratives in our culture. Money has a lot of narratives within families, within generations of families, all of which were coming from the minds and the brains and the thoughts of people that have gone before us. And when we grow up in that environment, our prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until 21 for females. Sorry, guys, 24 for males. So we know that thinking part, that reasoning part of our brain is not there present in terms of being able to say, I don't think I like that story. I don't think I will receive it, right? At 7 years old. At 7 years old, you hear mom or dad or aunt or the teacher say something about what money is or money isn't, and we receive it as if it is the gospel truth. And yes, I chose that word gospel truth because I have a lot of my friends out there who have this story that money is the root of all fill in the blank. Evil. Not in scripture, by the way. Nowhere has God said that. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. So I digress. Regardless of how you grew up with the most amazing family in the world or not, or somewhere in between, you walked away with automated stories from repetition in your subconscious that are running your daily decisions about how you make money, how you show up, what you charge, and how much you will allow yourself to make. I'm going to let that settle with you for a second because I know you want to throw something at me. Like, what do you mean allow, Shannon? Like, I want to allow as much as will come. Well, the only thing that's blocking you isn't the opportunities, and it isn't your knowledge, and it isn't the strategy that we're all chasing after, right? It is your brain's ability to have a network of belief that you deserve it, that it's inevitable, and that it should be yours, and that you can earn it as much as you want, and you can generously give it, and it's constantly in flow, and there's more than you could ever possibly want, and you get that cycle of sowing and reaping going. And if that's not what's automated in your subconscious right now, then guess what? You're just like 98% of the world who sadly will go through the rest of their life wondering, why can't I catch a break? Why doesn't my business grow? I guess I'm just destined to be at this level. And here's the clue that I want you to hear. It's not your fault. You didn't choose it. This is how your brain works on autopilot. So after today's podcast, I want to give you the tools to flip that success switch on in your brain and decide for yourself the money stories that you will hold and the money stories that you will release, and start that process of automating what you want to have in your brain and neutralizing and erasing the things that you want. So that's what we're talking about today on the podcast. Now, I've been recording the podcast live, which is a lot of fun because I can hang out ahead of time and ask some questions. And I did that today. And some of the things that you were sharing were things around wanting to charge more, but feeling like you don't deserve it. That's a money story. Or the conversation around, I should be somewhere further than I am. That's a money story, among other things. And so I want to talk about this money story and how it becomes identity. I almost want to pull my flip chart in and show you in the brain, but I'm going to have to tell you because you're listening to this. But really, your brain, and you've learned this over time if you've been hanging out with me, our neurocoaching model has a methodology that is science-backed of transformation. The neurocoaching model is created right out of neuropsychology. It's how a brain wires success in any transformation and how you neutralize and erase anything that's getting in the way. We know from science that a situation happens in your growing up years that created thoughts, and those thoughts created emotions, and those thoughts and emotions combined to become beliefs in the minds of your caregivers. And here are some of them that were in the minds of my caregivers. And I'm wondering if maybe this resonates. And as I'm saying these, I want you to think about, what was it that you heard, right? So I heard money was at the root of all evil. I heard that people who made money were doing it on the backs of other people. I heard that, and it was so interesting, I shared it in a podcast before, but I could make almost like $199,999, but I couldn't pass $200,000 for the longest time until I really unpacked the story that we used to drive by these homes and I would hear my father say things like, oh, those people at 200,000, they just steal from people. They're just bad. They're bad people, right? So now in my growing up, money was evil. Rich people were greedy. They were bad and they were mean and they did it on the backs of the good people. Well, I don't know about you. We're hanging out, so you probably are the same. Integrity is my number one value. Like, I'm a good person and I want to be a good person, right? It's something I seek after and I'm always trying to improve, right? So you could imagine what was going on in my money story when I have this big mission, this big vision, this big calling, these things I wanted to do. And in order for me to do that, I had to get people to say yes to buying products from me. And them saying yes to that mean my business would grow. And my business growing would mean all of the things that I wanted would take place. So in my mind, I would think that's what I want. But yet this automated program story was there and on automation and running 90% of my daily decisions. That's why I would go to do something in the business and I would procrastinate. I would go to do something that I know could create income and I would just get caught up in perfectionism and just keep doing the slide deck over and over and over and again because there was something that just wasn't perfect enough quite yet. Have you ever been there? That's not even your fault. That's your brain's way of saying the thing that you want is not in alignment with the money story that you have now on automation from youth, from childhood. So first things first, the first step was we got to understand that because it was repeated so much, it became our identity. And we know it's our identity when we say things like, I am and I'm not, I can and I can't, all those identity-based words around money. So what are you saying when you're saying, I am this kind of income earner or I'm not? What are you saying that you can and you can't do? What are you saying is stuck? What are you saying is not that you just don't know? Those are your brain safety release valve to get you back to the story that you grew up with. So the first thing that we've got to do is we've got to clarify. This is at the core of our success switch method of flipping on that success switch in your brain. You've got to clarify, what are the stories that you're telling yourself without your permission or knowledge, and it's not your fault. So some of the ways we can get after those stories are just simple questions. And I want to ask you today, this is the process I took my brain through and I take the brains of my clients through to unpack their stories. So just fill in the blank with me. People who have money are what? What is that definition for you? What did you first answer when I asked that question? Write that down, because that's what you think people who have money are or aren't. And when you think that, if it's positive, keep it. If it's something like people that, like mine was, people that have money are greedy, well, guess what? You are now fully cognizant, aware of the fact that people who have money are greedy is keeping you from the income that you want. That story that you didn't choose nor create is actually putting the brakes on creating the income and the business and the life that you want. It wasn't your fault. You didn't choose it, but you got to become clarified. You've got to become aware of the story that you told you didn't even create, but it's been told, so that you can neutralize and erase it. So people who have money are what? People who don't have money are what? Now, what do you mean? Like, people who don't have money are poor. Well, yeah, but was that glorified in maybe the religion that you grew up in, or in the home that you grew up in, where people who didn't have money, were they revered, right? Well, there's going to be a conflict in your mind about going out and making impact in lives through the medium of the sowing and the reaping, which is transforming people, transforms people, transforming people, and transforming people through a transaction where people pay attention, right? So what are your story? Money is what? Like, let's just go to the root of it. Money is, what was your answer? What was your answer? And if you're live with me here, answer me. Like, what is the story? When somebody says money is, what's the first thing you hear? What's the first thing you hear? People with money are, like, is it in your mind that people with money are making the biggest impact for the ones that need it the most? Or is it people with money are mean, greedy, evil? Because we got to clear that story. And the only way to clear that story is to clarify. People that make 6 figures a year are what? People who make 7 figures a year are what? People who make 8 figures and beyond are what? What is it for you? With money, what's possible? With money, what's not possible? What do you lose if you get money? If you have money, if you're with money, if you hold money in your account, what do you lose? Dear friend of mine grew up with a very entrepreneurial father that was always doing things, and they had a wildly successful business, but he was always gone. He was just gone from the moment, before she woke up till after she went to bed. And she would get up in the middle of the night to just see him, right? And kiss him. And then she'd get in trouble for getting out of bed. And she just never saw him. She wanted his love more than anything in the world. You can tell me what you think becoming successful means to her, right? So we had to work through this story around, she wanted to build a business more than anything in the world, but she kept blocking it because the story is, when I get to that success level, it means that I won't be there for those that I love. So I need you to slow down to speed up. What is that story? Get clear on what you think about money and what money means and what success means if you have it, and what success means when you don't. And what does just the straight up word money do to what comes into your mind? And if I was sitting here with you, we'd really be writing it down and breaking it down and going further. So I want you to do that. I don't want you to listen and just hear this as a great exercise. I want you to do it, right? Because once we can see the story for what it is, then you get the choice. And here's the great thing. You probably have some great things in there about it. So the things that will get you to the place you want to go, you keep them. You don't do anything with them. They're on autopilot. You don't have to do anything. They're going to fire automatically. But if there are 2 or 3 things that have come up as you've been listening to me, where you were like, light bulb, like, that's what I think about people with money, or light bulb, that's what I think money is, or light bulb, yeah, money was the root of all evil. I heard it growing up. Or light bulb, like, to be successful means you're a bad person. You are literally, without your permission or knowledge, your brain is restraining your ability to create the business or create the life that you want more than anything. So we got to clear that. We got to erase through that pillar in your brain, right? So we take people through the neurocoaching model through something called the mind matrix. But here on the podcast, I want you to start by separating the good from the bad. The story that you're going to keep in the story that you're not going to keep, that you're no longer going to be available for. And then start becoming aware when you're going to do something that you know is going to create income, and just lean into that resistance, the thing you know you're supposed to do that you've been procrastinating from, the thing that you're creating perfectionism around. When you start to lean back from that, you'll hear more of the story, and just get it written down. Because what we want to do is we want to automate a story that you choose. Just the same way it got automated in the beginning. You had no filter to say, that's not a story I want. Well, now you do. Now you're an adult. Now you can actually choose to brain prime into your mind, to your brain, the exact story that will replace those broken ones. So most of the battle, most of the challenge with making income to the level that you want to do, get to that next level in your business, isn't about a new strategy, a new tactic, a new process, yet we chase them. It's about what is literally chaining back my ability to say yes to myself. And it lies within these stories. We talked about success and failure last week. This week, we're talking about money. So I want you to start really diving into, what do I think and feel and believe about money, about people with money? Some people can make money all day long. Super easy to make money. But boy, have you spent it all and still in debt. So what is it about keeping money that is so hard? Why does keeping money, what does it mean about you if you keep money, right? So maybe that's not you. Maybe you make money and you save it and you never ever spend it. So your business is going really, really slow because you're not spending it. What does it mean to spend money? What does that mean? Start asking yourself what you heard when you were growing up, and unpack through clarify, really clarify those statements. And decide for yourself. We call this within our ecosphere DIA, decide in advance. Decide in advance what you're going to choose to replace those stories with. And then start the practice of even recording yourself saying those new things so that you're hearing it constantly. Because here's what's happening. Without your permission, they're running autopilot. So you got to get something in there for your brain to start to think that maybe you don't believe that anymore. You know, your subconscious that automates, it's neutral, it's not moral, it doesn't look at your vision board. It just knows what got repeated. So when you start giving it the opposite of what's in automation, it starts to wake up and say, well, wait a minute, maybe she doesn't believe this. Maybe there's a different belief. Maybe, and it kind of misfires a little bit. And that's when brain priming really gets in there and starts to create a new network. If I could show you in your brain, we would build a new network toward the money story that will allow the floodgates to open and allow that sowing and reaping. You're giving, you're charging, it's coming back to you, you're being generous, and it's just never ending. There's an abundance that is beyond your ability to out earn because there's just too much of it, or outgive. And then that starts to take over. So I hope this was powerful for you. I hope you're starting to see how the power to earn anything you want to earn in your life, create whatever legacy it is, leave it for your kids, create a different environment than maybe you grew up in. All of that is available to you, not in a strategy or tactic, but in truly the way your brain is wired and slowing down long enough to get clarity around those money stories and start to decide in advance for yourself what stories stay and what stories go. All right, that's what I have for you this week on the Epic Success Podcast. Next week, we'll dive deeper in more of the brain science of high performance and transformation and how you can tap into this tool of your brain to truly create massive momentum. All right, until then, we'll see you then.